Let's get back to trade now, because President Trump's threatening to raise tariffs on China if Xi Jinping does not meet with him at the G20 summit in Japan at the end of the month. It's the latest salvo in ongoing trade talks with China. Joining us now from Edinburgh, Scotland, is Kim Catechis, Martin Currie, portfolio manager. Kim, thank you so much for joining us. So you are portfolio manager, not just generally, but in emerging markets specifically. So I'm curious, from an investment perspective into China and in the broader Asia region, what you've made of all of the trade back and forth.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here. The first thing to say, I guess, is that it's very obvious at this point that this is not about trade. It's really as much about domestic politics in the US as it is about anything else. And the example is that May 30th announcement from the White House that they were intending to put in an escalation of tariffs on Mexico because they didn't feel they were working hard enough to stop illegal immigration from other countries south of there. In case, I'll come back to that in a minute, but for China specifically, since you asked, it's not just trade, it's the agreement that is on the table and being pushed by the US negotiators is actually asking China to stop being China. They're actually asking them not to be a nominally communist country with a fair amount of central planning. And that's just not on the table as far as China is concerned. So for investors, I've noticed with interest how the markets have been moving down every time that there's an announcement of a new threat of tariffs, and moving back up again in relief when they don't happen. Again, the best example is this week's announcement that the Mexican tariffs are not coming in after all. I think what investors might be missing is that we have seen a destruction of the old style rules of the game. And going forward, nothing's guaranteed. What I mean by that is, if you're a country that sits down to negotiate a deal with the US, and I'm sure China's probably thinking this way too, it doesn't stop you from getting hit by tariffs later. Mexico is a great case in point. The day when that threat of new tariffs came on was the day that the Mexican Senate was about to sit down and debate the USMCA.
Kim, it's Rick Newman here in New York. So there's this, presumably there's going to be some discussion between President Xi and Trump later this month, and there seems to be some expectation that that could resolve this impasse. But China seems to be standing up to Trump. So where do you see this headed after this get-together between the two presidents that everybody seems to be looking forward to so much?
I may be a little bit out of consensus here, but I'm not looking forward to anything changing. I do believe they may well meet. They may well get on well. They may even have some kind of words of mutual respect. But I don't expect a resolution. I expect what will happen. The best case scenario, I think, for investors is some kind of awkward truce, mutual discomfort going forward. I think that China's probably sitting there thinking, well, we are not going to lose face by folding. If you think about Xi Jinping, he doesn't have elections next year. He can basically be president for the next 25 years if he feels like it. And China, being a controlled economy, a centrally controlled economy, means that they have demonstrated over many decades an ability to micromanage their economy, to deal with situations that go against them. Now, I'm not saying they're bulletproof, because they're not. Everyone gets hurt in a trade war. I just think they're going to last longer.
How successful do you think companies are going to be in trying to avoid Trump's tariffs by trying to remove supply lines from China into other countries?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. The short answer is it's not going to be easy. And the reason why, and I keep referring back to Mexico because that's something that came out of left field, certainly for me. If you think about it, those tariffs can go back on any day because the US government has not made it clear what exactly they expect from Mexico. What does success look like? Right. Is it no illegal immigrants? Is it 10? Is it 20? We don't know. So given that level of uncertainty, corporates are, I'm sure there's some tremendously angst-filled conversations in boardrooms, because it's not just Mexican companies that are going to get hurt. It's American companies, Canadian companies,
Right.
Taiwanese, Japanese, German companies. All of these international corporates are in Mexico.
So given all that, Kim, sorry, just briefly, from an investment perspective, there's got to be some angst as well, because what you're describing is a situation where there is no stability whatsoever, because this kind of thing can happen at any time. So given that, how do you make investment decisions?
Okay, what we do is you have to literally map out where is the company that you're interested in on the radar, viewed from potential tariff, flailings from the White House. So your company might not even be in the firing line, logically, but here the issue is there are unintended consequences, and you could be collateral damage. So I wouldn't buy any company that relies on the global supply chain through Mexico at the moment. It's not that I wouldn't invest in the US or I wouldn't invest in Mexico. I'd just be really careful about what the business model requires in order for the estimates of earnings growth to come through.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, Kim Catechis, thank you very much for your time. Martin Currie, portfolio manager, joining us from Edinburgh. Thank you.
Thank you.